Hey guys, so I'm going to be planting the 4 peach trees and the cherry tree. You can kind of see where I've dug the holes, and then there's one right here. Those are just my markers. I don't know if you can see with the kids there, but the holes don't need to be real deep. They need to be, maybe a shovel depth, maybe a little bit deeper, but you don't need to plant them real deep. You just need to make enough room for all of the roots. Since they're bare root trees, you need to make room to spread out the roots. So let's see if that hole that I just dug is big enough, and if so, we'll start planting it. Okay, so you guys can probably see the hole. It's not real deep, but it's wide because these roots are a lot more wider than you'd get in a little potted plant at, one of the big box stores. So you got to make sure that there's enough room in the hole to spread out the roots like that. It doesn't need to be real deep. You can see where it was buried to is right here. So you don't want that any deeper than the level of the ground. So this right here is about as deep as it's going to need to go. In fact, I'm probably going to have to put some dirt underneath the center of the root ball just to hold it up there. And then what you do is you just start packing it around, and once you're done, you water them in real well so that it kind of gets out any pockets of air. Okay guys, so the tree is about halfway in, but what I like to do is, as I'm filling in the dirt, I will take my hand and my fingers, and I will just use my fingers like that, especially right around the tree here. You can see where there's pockets of air, so you want to make sure you pound it down and try to get all the air. Thank you, sweetheart. That all the air pockets are out of. So by using your fingers and kind of pushing the dirt down like that, you try to compress all of the, you don't want to compress the dirt, but you want to push the dirt down into those air pockets. And then when you water it in, when it becomes muddy, it'll fill down even further and it'll settle. So you want to make sure you have some extra dirt left to kind of fill back in on the top. So once you have punched down the dirt with your fingertips, then you fill it back in and you punch it down with your fist just to make sure it's nice and compact. And then Homestead Boy 2 is going to hook up the hose, and we're going to water this in. And what I'll do is I'll water it in, put more dirt on it, and then once it's settled, so I will pound a post in right next to the main trunk here and tie it off. And the reason you do that is because that first year, you want to make sure you give the root structure as much stability as possible, so that if the wind's blowing it, it's not ripping off the root hairs on the end of the roots where it's getting most of the nutrients. So yeah, with some of the bigger apple trees, you pound a T-post into it, but with these, I believe you use a wood post. So then you water it in good, and it's not just a sprinkling. You want to make sure you soak it good so that the air pockets get all out, and you'll probably water it twice the first day you plant it. So I'm going to water it like this. I'm going to give it a little bit more water, let everything settle, and then water it again. So you guys can see this one, after getting watered down, it doesn't look like there's much settling. Must have done a decent job of getting the water in there. It might have settled a little bit over there and a little bit right here, but nothing to where you've got craters that have sunk in. So I will add a little bit more dirt, make sure it's in there, but that's pretty good. Now, when you're planting a tree, ideally you'd have the sod left over. You could flip it over, put it so the grass side is down, the root side is up with like no dirt on it because you've taken all the dirt off of it, and that would help to keep the moisture in. It's very easy to do when you plant potted trees from a big box store. And I'm not talking down potted trees. I've just found that you can get better and bigger trees when you buy mail order, or from this gentleman I've found who orders from a huge nursery supplier. And so if you're doing a potted tree, it's pretty simple because you know how big the hole is. You can cut it out previous. There's not a whole lot to it. It's a big circular hole. So you can flip that piece of sod over, put it right around the tree, and it keeps the dirt, from drying out too fast. I will probably try, I don't know if you guys can see, there's a pile of grass right here. Problem is it's pieced up into a lot of different pieces. So if I try to flip it back over, which I'll probably still do, it will probably root and it won't do exactly what I want it to, but it'll help hold the moisture a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do anyway. So the bigger the chunks you can take the sod out in, the easier it is then to piece it back in when you are done planting it. And I wanted to let you guys know there are a ton of worms here, so something must be going right with the soil, because in the 2 holes that we've dug so far, I bet you we found 60 worms. I don't know if you guys are able to tell this, but this is all the grass flipped upside down. So you can see, here it is. You flip it upside down, you kind of puzzle it in there, and that'll help keep the moisture in. And with the roots up and without hardly any dirt on them, they shouldn't keep growing. They should die, and then they just provide more nutrients for the tree. So that's one way to try to keep moisture down, or moisture in the tree. So this one here is a cherry tree. That one with the guard on it was there. It survived the winter. And those 4 over there are peach trees. And if you can see, they're not in a perfect line. And I'm not real anal about things like that, but the one tree, the 3rd one up there, is kind of out of line quite a bit. Let me tell you why. So the reason why it's not perfectly in line is the kids wanted to help. And I'm all about letting the kids help as much as possible. And they started digging that hole before I really saw what was going on, and who am I to tell them it can't be a foot over? Big deal, right? Big whoop. It's not gonna hurt anything. And honestly, selfishly, if they feel invested in these trees, I'm more likely to be able to get them to come out and water in the summer. You know, when the trees need to be watered because we were not getting rain or something, I'll be able to say, hey, you remember those trees you planted? It would really help Daddy out if you went and took the hose out there and watered them for me. And they, you know, instead of just saying, hey, go water those trees, the trees that they planted, I think would get them to come out here a little bit more. So I've just got to put sod on top of 3 of them, give them all one more good watering, and then these trees are planted.